Hi everybody, my name is Allie. If you're new here, welcome back. Whoa. If you're returning, welcome back. If you're new here, hello. Do I look better? Do I look clearer, more nice, and do I look better? I'm gonna pretend I can all see you shaking your head yes, saying yes, and agreeing with me. I'm gonna pretend that you all agree with me because you should, because I finally got a new camera. My other camera was not great, and I think we all know that and you were all being nice about it. But I got a new camera. Look at me being professional. I guess. That's the life update. I also got a new vacuum. That's a new life update. It was a Black Friday purchase. And speaking of Black Friday, it's the end of November. Those things don't correlate, but it's the end of November and I read a bunch of books and I'll have to talk about them. To be specific, I read 13 books. So we have to talk about 13 different books. First 5 or 6 I read in a reading vlog. I did this video ends when I find a 5-star read. I had 4s, 4.5, and I had a 5-star, but it was a good reading month. I didn't have anything below a 4. So it might be kind of boring in terms of all of my scores are going to be 4s, but you know. The first book I read this month was Forget Me Not by Julie Soto. This book I bought specifically based on the cover. I liked the cover and I bought it. That's the only reason. I didn't even read the back. I knew nothing about it, just bought it for the cover. But I ended up really liking it. I 4-starred it. This follows Amma and Elliot. Elliot has taken over his father's florist company business, florist shop. And Amma is a wedding planner. Amma gets this job doing this really high profile wedding for these two really big influencers that are getting married. And they want Elliot to be their florist. So Amma and Elliot have to work together and there is this weird kind of awkwardness between them where it's like, do they hate each other? You can tell there's some sort of history and you're going through this book in past and present perspectives to figure out what went wrong and how things are going to be fixed. So second chance romance, very grumpy sunshine, good spice. But yeah, I feel like my only complaint, the only reason this wasn't a 5-star is because there wasn't that much of them being a couple in the presence. There was a lot of the backstory of why they weren't together and a lot of the presence of them trying to oh hey, this is the first time we've seen each other since everything went down. But there wasn't that much of them resolving it and actually being together as a couple. I feel like there could have been maybe 3 or 4 more chapters of that. I feel like that's the only reason that it wasn't a 5-star. But I love second chance romance and this one was very good. So if it sounds like something you'd be interested in, check it out. I then read Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I got this book on release day. I went to buy Barnes & Noble and picked it up. They had the sprayed edge version. I didn't even pre-order it. The Barnes & Noble that I go to is very small and it's in a really quiet part of my town. It's hardly ever busy. There's hardly ever anyone in there. So I figured out that I could take my chances and find one on release day and I did. I went back and forth between reading it physically and listening to it on audiobook. That's why I got through it so fast. I had it finished in a couple days, but I was able to listen to 6 hours of it at a time. This is a 4, 4.5. This wasn't a 5-star. The first one was a 5-star. This book was good, but there were parts that annoyed me. So if you don't know anything about Fourth Wing, this is the second book, Iron Flame. Fourth Wing is dragon fantasy book. It's a book that got a lot of people into romantasy. The main character, Violet, she goes to school to be a dragon rider. You ride dragons. But it's very divergent where it's you have to take all these classes and you can die and get kicked out if you don't get scores high enough and all that jazz. So it's will she survive this super deadly college? It's enemies to lovers. The love interest is the son of former resistance king, the person that wanted to take over, and her mom is one of the heads of the army, so they're totally enemies to lovers from them. But this is the second book. It was good. There were parts that genuinely annoyed me, and I don't want to go too in depth of them to spoil them for anybody, but there were certain parts that was they just kept bringing up the same point over and over again and talking about it, but then not doing anything about it. It was okay, cool, well, somebody's going to find out this information eventually, so what are you going to do? But let's start planning what we're going to do about it, and not just every other chapter say, nobody can find out this information. And then sometimes Violet, the main character, genuinely annoyed me where I wanted her to grow some brain cells, where it was this thing happened to me, oh my gosh, how terrible. And then it happens to her 3 more times and it's bestie, haven't you learned? Haven't you figured out to not do this thing because this action is going to result from it? There were some times where I was just Violet, please grow up. The characters in these books are 21 and half the times I was thinking that they were 16 because of just the brain cells that were lacking. It was good and it was entertaining, but there were some parts that I was like, please, for the love of God, do something intelligent. Very good cliffhanger. I legitimately read the last chapter like 4 times to figure out what the hell happened, so I'm interested to see where it goes in the 3rd book. And Xaden can do no wrong. Xaden did nothing wrong this entire book. The only person that annoyed me was Violet and her dumb decisions. Xaden did nothing wrong. Xaden will never do something wrong. I will defend Xaden until the end of my day. Enjoyed this. I think I really enjoyed too. But yeah, check out 4th Wing. I then read A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. I 4-starred this. This one was good. This is the last book in the series. It's a 3-book series. It's It's Once Upon a Broken Heart, The Ballad of Never After, and A Curse for True Love. This is the last book. It wasn't my favorite. I think the 2nd book is still my favorite. The 2nd book is, I don't know, it just hits different for me. I felt like there was too much Apollo. There wasn't enough Evangeline and Jax. If you don't know anything about this series, the 1st book, Once Upon a Broken Heart, follows Jax and Evangeline. Evangeline is the most delusional person I have ever read about. If you're looking for a character that is delusional as hell, Evangeline is your girl. Evangeline is in love with a boy who is not in love with her in any way, shape, or form, and that boy is marrying her sister. She completely believes that she and this boy are 100% soulmates, and there's no possible way that he could ever marry her sister. It has to be like he's under a spell and he's not making this decision consciously, he's being forced to do it. So she goes to Jax, who is kind of like a god, like a lower level god. He is the Prince of Hearts, and he's like a trickster and makes deals with people. She goes to Jax to try and get Jax to help her break this curse on this boy that she's in love with, which of course turns into her having to make a deal with him and do favors, and it is their enemies to lovers love story. It's YA, so there's not really any spice. It's just kind of like kissing and closed door stuff. So this is the 3rd book after it. Too much Apollo. I get it, Apollo's a crazy person. They established that pretty quickly. They didn't need that many chapters to establish it. They established it after like 3 of them. And I didn't want his POV. It could have been Apollo, but like coming from Evangeline. With Evangeline and Jax being the main characters, there was like 3 chapters of them. You didn't get a point of view of Jax until it was like chapter like 21, I think. So it's just, I needed more of them. They did a good job establishing from like the cliffhanger that the 2nd book left up on and like setting this book up. And then like, so like setting up this book was like this much. And then like Apollo was like this much. And then them being together was like this much. So it's like, I wanted more of them being together as a couple. Again, more of the resolution. But like, all in all, I love this series with my whole heart. I love Jax. I'm obsessed with him. If you haven't read Once Upon a Broken Heart, now is the time to, because the series is fully out and you don't have to deal with cliffhangers anymore. But yeah, 4 stars. I was slightly disappointed, but like I still liked it, I guess. Yeah. I then read my only 5-star of the month, Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillick. This is a duology. The 1st book is One Dark Window. This is the 2nd book. I am obsessed with these. They were so good. These are very like, they're fantasy, but they have a very gothic vibe. If you're someone that likes like a darker theme, not necessarily that it's like graphic, bloody, gory, haunted stuff. This was not like happy forest with fairies. This was like a dark castle, poisoned water, a smoke in the air. Very just like a dark setting, dark energy. If you like kind of a darker gothic romantasy, then I really suggest this duology. It was so good. The 1st book, One Dark Window, follows Elspeth. She gets infected by this disease that is running through the kingdom. She was hidden by her family. Nobody knows that she has this disease. And nobody also knows that from this disease, she has who she calls Nightmare, which is a character but not in a physical form. Nightmare lives in her mind. He's like a commentary, subconscious, but he's like a being, and nobody knows that he's there. Like, he can take control of her body when he wants to, and yada yada. The magic system of this world, there is kind of like tarot cards. There's 12 different cards. If you have one, you can get powers from them. So there's like the Maiden card. If you have it, you can change your physical appearance to make yourself more beautiful. Different cards have different powers. And if you get all 12 cards, then you're like the most powerful person in the world. You can get rid of this sickness, blah, blah, blah. So while Elspeth is hiding this, she's also trying to help her enemies to lovers love interest, who is one of the sons of the king, collect all of these cards to destroy the bad evilness that is going on. I feel like I did a horrible job explaining it, but it's so good. This is such a unique storyline that I feel like I haven't read before, and I've read so many fantasies, I've read so many romantices, I've read so many enemies to lovers, and this was so different. The second one, she did a whole different point of view of Elm, one of the other brothers, and Ione, another side character, so you get a whole nother side character love story going on, and it's just so... I legitimately cried at the end of this book, and that's what makes it a 5-star, is it brought out emotions. I was literally sobbing, crying. Like, it was a touching ending, it was a sad ending, it was a beautiful ending. I loved it. If you haven't read these books and they seem like something you'd be interested in, please read them. I can't recommend them enough. I 5-starred it, so like, do it. I then read These Twisted Bonds by Lexi Ryan. I read the first book, These Hollow Vows, months ago, and at the time this book was only out in hardcover, and I had the paperback version of the first book, and I don't know if I'm weird, but I don't like owning a paperback of one book and a hardcover of another if I have the option to have both. So I waited until this came out in paperback, only to realize that this is a super glossy cover, where the other book is like a really matte cover like this, so I am mad that the covers technically don't match, but you know, whatever, I got over it. I got over it. I'm getting over it. I'm getting over it, okay? I'm getting there. I'm working on it. But anyways, I read it and I 4-starred it. It's another just like fae, fantasy, enemies to lovers romance. I feel like I don't know how to describe it other than that. It's just another fae fantasy romance. It was super popular a while ago. I think I liked the first book a little bit better, but yeah, I liked it. I read it, and I'm not upset about the covers being different, and I'm not gonna stop talking about it for that specific reason. I then read from Book of the Month, The Unmaking of June Pharaoh by Adrienne Young. I've read a few of Adrienne Young's books. I still have some on my TBR card that I haven't read yet, but I like her as an author, so I figured I would read this. This follows June Pharaoh. I've ended up 4-starring this book. This is one of the like time travel romance things where it's like different universes, you relive the same day over and over again, that energy. And I'm not always the biggest fan of that trope, those types of books. I'm not the biggest fan of relive the same day until you figure things out, time travel-y stuff. So like, I liked it. If you're somebody that likes the time travel things, I really think you'll like this. It's not my personal genre, but it still got 4 stars, so that means it's good. Considered. Contemporary. I don't know why we're having this discussion, but yeah, I read this. For it being time travel that I don't like, it was good. So if you're a time travel person and you haven't read this yet, check it out. I feel like I don't know how to explain it because it's a whole nother trope that everybody knows about. I then read a book that has been on my TBR for forever. I finally read Daisy Hates by Just Hastings. This is the second book in This is the second book in the Magnolia Park series. I read Magnolia Parks months ago, again. I ended up 4-starring this. I think I liked Magnolia Parks a little bit more with just the characters. I don't know if I liked these characters as much, but I kind of liked the storyline of this more. I liked more of, like, there's a lot more of, like, the characters, like, connecting with texting and stuff than there was in the first book. I just feel like this one wasn't as dramatic as the first. Yeah, I still really liked it. I think there's one more book in the series. I don't have it yet, but I think I definitely still plan on reading it. Magnolia Parks is like if a reality TV show was a book. It's just very messy, very drama. Like if Jersey Shores was written in a book, it would be this. It's rich people having rich people problems and just wanting to punch everyone in the face every 5 seconds. That's what the whole series is. The first one follows Magnolia Parks. This is a spin-off of a side character Daisy hates, and this is her individual story. But yeah, finally read it, and I've had it for like months, so glad to get it off my shelf. I then read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I refused to see the movie until I read the book. Still have not, at the time of recording this, I still have not seen the movie, but I refused to watch it before I read the book. I read the book, I 4-starred it, I liked it, it was good. Is it better than the original Hunger Games? No. But am I now more prepared to go see the movie? Yes. Because I wanted to see the movie. I genuinely bought this and read it because I wanted to see the movie. I wasn't that interested in it until I started like seeing it acted out in the movie, and I was like, okay, maybe I might be into this again. So yeah, I read it to see the movie. It was 4 stars, it was good. Original Hunger Games, still better. Still excited to see the movie. I think she did a really good job with it. Obviously, the whole what actually happened to Lucy Gray thing is crazy. I thought it was a really good backstory for Snow, but I do like all the internet memes coming out about it where he was like, he let one situationship convince him to kill children for a living. So it's like, I'm loving the memes that are coming out of this. But if you're interested in seeing this movie, I highly suggest reading the book first. I think it clears up a lot of things that people are confused about in the movie. From my friends that have seen the movie, they all think that the movie kind of makes Snow seem less crazy than what he actually is, where the book is like, no, he's crazy. Also, we love Tigress. We stan her, we love her. And I want a book and a movie about Tigress specifically. Back to my dystopian roots. I then, on my Kindle, read The Gramar Effect. This is a new spin-off series from the Off-Campus series. I read Off-Campus like right when I started getting into reading again. I probably when I first started this channel. But The Gramar Effect follows one of the kids of one of the original couples, Garrett and Hannah, of the first book. This is their son and his romance, or their daughter and their romance. So they have a daughter who plays professional hockey and is trying to make the USA Olympics. It's like enemies to lovers-ish between her and a boy on the men's hockey team. He is trying to get in good with her dad because he's becoming the coach and needs his dad's support so he can become captain. She wants his help for some just like pointers in hockey so she can make this Olympics team. So they're kind of like spending time together for their own unique benefits and then slowly falling in love. I 4-starred it. It was good. I will say that I'm not always the biggest fan of relationships where they just are sleeping together because they're sexually attracted to each other. I personally like a book when they get an emotional connection first and then it turns into this, where this, like, it is straight up, they were just like, I think you're hot, you think I'm hot, let's sleep together. And then feelings happened, and that's not necessarily my favorite, but like, it was good. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it. I was worried that I was going to be disappointed, but I think I really liked it. I 4-starred. If she comes out with more for the different characters, I definitely think I'd be open to reading them. I was worried that it wasn't going to like live up to what Off Campus was, or like it was going to be dumb or something, but I really liked it. It was good spice. I liked the characters, and yeah, if you haven't read it yet, go check it out, especially if you were an off-campus fan. I then did like a whole 360-degree turn from reading my smutty hockey romance to reading 2 classic Jane Austen books. I have almost every single Jane Austen book in the fancy like Barnes & Noble collector editions that are all like super pretty and like leather bound, and the only one that I had read was Pride and Prejudice, and I was bored one day and decided to read Emma and Persuasion. Persuasion, obviously, I finished much faster because it's much smaller than Emma. I rated both of these 4 stars. Emma, really good. I think I almost might like Emma better than Pride and Prejudice. Like, Pride and Prejudice, it's Pride and Prejudice, it can't be beaten. But Emma is being slept on. It was so good. Persuasion, really good. I 4-starred both of them. I don't really know what to say about them. They're classic Jane Austens. I feel like everybody kind of knows what every book is about. A complete 360-degree turn from my smutty hockey romance to Jane Austen. And we love that for me. That is my aesthetic. My aesthetic is chaos. If you haven't learned that, I think you'll figure that out really soon. I then went back to one of my tried and true authors, Abby Jimenez, and read Life's Too Short. I have been going through and reading kind of her backlog of books, and this has to be one of my favorites. I, again, 4-starred it. It was so good. Love a single parent romance, and that's what this was. This had where it's the emotional connection and then the physical connection, and that's what I live for. I loved the emotional of this. She does a really good job of all of her books having some sort of like disability or like addiction or hardship that she really does her best to try and represent, and she did it again with this book. This one touches a lot on terminal illness, on grief, hoarding, and mental issues. Basically, our main character, Vanessa, she is a influencer. She wanted to start a YouTube channel to just kind of document her life because she could possibly be dead in a year. Her sister died from this disease, her mother died from this disease, and she may or may not have it, she doesn't know yet, but she decides to start a YouTube channel to just talk about living your life to the fullest because she doesn't know how much of a life she's gonna have. And she gets like super uber mega famous and is like a travel vlogger and all that. Her sister has a problem with addiction and gets pregnant. She ends up dropping her baby off at her doorstep and never coming back to pick her up. So Vanessa is now a parent to a child that she never planned on. She has to completely give up this life that she had for a life that she doesn't know if she will continue to have. She's like, how do I raise a child if I don't know I'm going to be for them? Her family has a bunch of other family and other personal mental health issues. The main character, love interest, is her next door neighbor who is a big shot lawyer, and I love him. He was such a good character. I loved him so much. He did a really good job of establishing an emotional connection before a physical one, and I just lived for that. This is probably one of my more favorite Abby Jimenez that I've read. And I've officially read, I don't think all of her books, but all of the books that I have of hers. Read Abby Jimenez. I love her. And then last but not least, I read again from Book of the Month, This Spells Love by Kate Robb. This is another time travel, we live the same day romance. Again, if you're somebody that likes that, I think you would like this. Again, I 4-starred it for it not being a trope that I normally like. It reminded me of The Ex-Hex, if you've read that, where she breaks up with her boyfriend and her sister and them, they like do a love spell to try and like make her forget him in the breakup, but like it works too well and he like doesn't exist anymore, and it's like having to, she like wakes up in a different time where he doesn't know her and she has to convince him that they're like, yeah. It's another time travel thing, which again isn't my favorite, but like this one did pretty good and I liked it. So if you're a time travel-y person, then you should read this and you should read The Unmaking of June Pharaoh. Here's all the books I read. I read 13 books. Here they are. I read them. Good job to me. I hope you had a good reading month. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. If you want to follow me anywhere, all of my social media is down below. Down below is also my Amazon wish list. If you want to send me a book on there, or you can add your favorite book to it and send me your favorite book to force me to read it. Down below is also my Pango books. If you're interested in reading any books like this, you can go on Pango and find them secondhand. It's a cheap way of filling up a TBR. I really appreciate you so much. Again, if there's something weird with my audio or something, feel free to let me know, and I can change it in future while I get used to the new camera setup. Stay safe, have a good reading month, and I'll see you somewhere else on the internet. Goodbye!